Hey, it's News from Heaven, and today we're going to figure out, or at least try, what gives you eternal life. And I'm not talking about what do I do, what kind of moral actions do I take, what religion do I sign up to be a part of. I'm talking about the mechanism, like what actual little set of conditions allow us to survive the death of the body. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell if you've subscribed, because if you don't, you're not going to see when the videos come out. All right, you can follow along with us. We're in Last Judgment today. Click the link in the description to get after it and get your mind right. And if I say get your mind right, it's just a very pushy thing to say, and it's a very ambiguous thing to say, because there could be so many things. I mean, that what I think is, let's separate the light from the dark. Just starting to get a sense of, okay, what in my mind is perhaps, and you can never know for sure, perhaps working against the good and the true. What's trying to keep me limited and disrupted, or give me some kind of negative goal to pursue? What is counterproductive and holding me back? And what is not coming with love and charity toward the human race? Start to think about what that is, and then think about what's up above. What's potentially there? What at times have I seen and recognized to be the actual truth of life? If we just start thinking that there are these poles there, this can help equip us as we go in to learn about eternal life and what that can tell us about, the momentary way in which we hook into what is good and true and try to get that into the foreground. Okay, this is Last Judgment, number 25, and scroll all the way down to subsection 5. That's what's really going to hook us up here. So this we begin. Yeah, sometimes I just have to get my cursor started. Angels have also said that there is within every human an innermost or highest level of life. So, who are we? Who's our source material? Who's our unnamed source inside the heavenly government? Angels. This is coming out of, and if you're brand new, hello, see you later. This is the Swedenborg experience. He's going and talking to angels in his out-of-body spiritual experiences, and they are giving him a behind-the-scenes look at what? At us. And specifically, the inner workings. And we're not talking about what you can look at with a microscope. This is the inner workings of the spirit. Which, does the spirit have inner workings just like the body? Yeah, there's biological levels of complexity to not just the spirit, but the way the spirit and the body interact, and the way that we think about, God's with everybody. God is with you, and God is giving you life. How does God give life? By what steps? Everything else has steps. That's what we're going to try to poke around with today. And look at how specific we're going to be able to get here. Have said that within every human there is an innermost or highest level of life, or an innermost and highest something. So it's a something where the divine nature of the Lord flows in first and most intimately. And look at how we're starting to get these qualifiers around God. Isn't God everywhere? I mean, can we really say that God is in one space? Well, even though God is supporting everything, there can be ways, elements within us, that where God actually makes initial contact, that are serving a particular direct link. And here we got something that is both innermost and highest. So how does that work? I don't know. Well, I mean, you think of those two as different, right? We've got, so something within us, let's say we've got these levels. Something here is highest, right? So there we've got God coming in, but also you think of innermost is this, right? And you could just say, this is just seeing this from the top, and maybe it is in some way, but yet this seems like this would sort of be innermost on this one rather than somehow spiritually this equals this. And don't we have it like that anyway from an emotional standpoint? If I said, the highest part of me, and I said the deepest part of me, we know that I was talking about something similar, if not the same thing, even though the deepest part of the ocean is the opposite of the highest part of the ocean. I'm telling you, man, it's already getting crazy. Okay, so we've got this something, right? We've got something going on here. And how is the Lord, this is the thing the Lord is most intimately interfacing within us. Let's give it a little bit of color. Look at me, I'm Bob Ross over here. So this is the innermost, highest part of us that somehow the Lord is directly interfacing with. From this highest point, the Lord arranges the other things within us that make up our spiritual and earthly selves, descending level by level in accord with the way we are designed. So isn't that awesome? That it's not just God is everywhere doing everything in everything all the time. There is an order in which it's done. So we've got a couple of components here. We've got an earthly self, green, right? We've got a spiritual self. And God is descending level by level, managing point to point. So if this is where God, we've got God is a yellow sun, right? So this stuff is yellow here, and God can most order efficiently, whatever it is, the best way for it to happen. God connects directly with that, and through that manages, we talked about the spiritual level of us. It's going to be worth sitting here for a second to let me fill this in. It's going to be a lot more satisfying if it's at least close to right. Okay, yeah, that's good. I know that's not very pleasing that it's down there, but that's just going to have to be a part of life. And then the earthly, right? So God is got this stuff. And if you think of our consciousness mainly being here, sometimes being up here a little bit, this, probably we don't really have a sense of what's going on in here. But it is through that God then brings order and structure to what's happening with us spiritually, and then through the Spirit bringing order and structure to the stuff that really is popping up for us day to day in our consciousness, and I guess even through to the body, wherever that is. And this is the means, it happens there as well. This is the means by which God gets in and works with us. The angels called this innermost or highest something the Lord's gateway to us and his quintessential dwelling within us. And there are a lot of spiritual traditions that are like, let God come and live in me, have a home in me. But where's the home? This is the dwelling. This is where God lives, God's house in us. And just like we have a house and we live there, we may go out and do things, but this is where we really reside. So God resides in this part of us, and through that comes out and has this sort of network that moves the rest of us. Now, where have we heard of something like that before? If we're thinking about us as a person and we're thinking and acting and all that, isn't there the same progression that happens? Don't we have, what color? Well, I guess we'll do it red. Don't we have a little something that we call a brain? Maybe mine littler than others. And isn't it true that that's where we're seeing the initial impulses, and then through the nervous system, which looks exactly like this, doesn't that move out then into the body, and we get movement and everything there? Isn't there an initial point? It's not just that the hands handle how the hands move and the arms, and they all kind of meet in the middle in this sort of like blockchain series of events. I don't know how that works. But it's the brain. Impulses start in the brain and they move out through the body. Well, this is like the brain of the brain of the brain. This is the deepest, most complex, closest to God, most accessible by God part of us, which then moves out into these other parts of the life. They also said that this innermost or highest something is what makes us human. Oh, what does it do for us? It makes you a human being. Well, I would have thought sort of the earthly stuff, how we look, what we think, what our day-to-day concerns are, that makes us human. But actually, this thing is the core, even though it might seem ineffable and flitty and flighty and off there. That's what makes us human. And distinguishes us from mere animals. Pet lovers unite. Let's send some letters to Curtis. Okay, so he's saying this, I write, is a little bit harsh, but we don't know if he meant it as an insult. So, but what differentiates human beings from animals through this? Let's just walk through this and see. Which do not have it. Okay, and what difference does that make? And this is why we, unlike animals, can have our inner levels, our higher and lower mind, raised by the Lord to himself. Okay, so Swedenborg is essentially saying that what you can do that even a parrot, a very smart animal, is a parrot pretty smart? Yeah, crows are pretty smart. They can do a lot of cool things. And certainly Swedenborg talks about animals being in the order of their life more so than humans are, because humans are not acting as humans should, whereas a crow acts how a crow should. But what a crow can't do, according to this, is start to think about God and examine its actions from a moral perspective and say, oh, I want to start thinking spiritually. And the reason is this innermost something, which we're not even conscious of, is the way God tries to get humans to act how humans should act, which we generally don't, which is to love God and love the neighbor, and to be an embodiment of love and wisdom. This is the means by which God is trying to do that. This allows us to believe. Okay, this makes it clear. This allows us to believe in him, be moved with love for him, and be granted intelligence and wisdom and the ability to speak on the basis of reason. So what does this do for us? What's the point of this little thing in us? Allows us to believe in God and to love God. And then it's interesting that this comes along with it. Speak on the basis of reason, which doesn't necessarily mean you have a large vocabulary. And doesn't necessarily mean that you're able to string sentences together. It's more about the allowing the true to shine through. Although, as we're about to see, you can have these capabilities intact even if you destroy the moral basis that they're supposed to sit on. And we've missed a beginning of this conversation where Swedenborg says that actually, this is sort of the punchline of the whole show, but we can't. I can only read a page of this stuff in the time we have allotted. That this little thing is what makes it so we live forever if we're able to plug it. Well, I mean, actually, never mind. Not if we're able to plug it. It's an automatic thing. It's just you can live forever in a really cool way or live forever in a lame way based on it. But this thing here, the Lord's house, the Lord's dwelling, it not only allows us to love God and believe in God and then get intelligence and wisdom coming down into these parts, but also this allows us, this is the thing that gives eternal life. If you ever wonder, how is it that I'm something that makes sure the files stay saved? Is this. And so because we already know that, now some people are asking these angels, asked whether people live forever if they deny the divine and reject divine truths, which are the means by which our lives are united to the divine. Yeah, because if the point of this is to do that stuff and you don't do it, can you still live forever? The angels said that such people, just like those who acknowledge the divine, retain the ability to think and intend, and therefore to believe and love the kinds of things that come from the divine. And that this is the ability that makes it possible for them to live to eternity like everyone else. Oh, so it's even just the potential, the kinds of things. Even if you just have the ability, because according to Swedenborg, there's plenty of people who invert this order, and we can do it in states as well. Hopefully, we're moving out of it. But where instead of I've got a great way to represent that. Instead of saying, "Oh, this is on top, this is what matters, and this opens to the Lord," you flip upside down, and you say the things that are most important in my life are these superficial, self-serving, ego-based concerns. Then the next most important things are the sort of inner ones. And this thing down here, love God, love truth, that's nothing. You can invert this, but even so, there's still enough of a connection there that even if you're not using it how it was, the Lord can bring the ability to live through it. Just because you have the potential, and that potential actually, the ability to think and reason stays intact no matter what the heart is like. The angels added that this ability comes to people from that aforementioned innermost and highest something that everyone has. They gave extensive evidence. So the angels are kind of almost leading a class on this, it sounds like, that even the people in hell have this ability, and that it's the source of their ability to argue and speak against divine truths. And so, Swedenborg meets a lot of negative spirits, which are arguing hard against the principles that give life and lead us down the good path. Don't you have that here? I mean, we can, plenty of people can argue against what's good, and sometimes we're arguing against things that are actually true and good because we don't think they're true and good, and that's there's no malice in that intent. But you have other times when we know what's actually true, but we want to cover up that truth, or we want to distort it because we want to get something that we want. You would think, why isn't God going to, as a penalty, remove that ability in people? But because God is love, and because being able to think in will and freedom is the essence of human life, even though there's barely any space and we're misusing it, God does allow life and the ability that even in hell, if what you love is to attack these truths, I'm going to give you the ability to do that. There's going to be limits on how much access you have to harming people who are trying to live by them, but I'm going to try to give you as much life as is possible forever. That's why everyone, regardless of what they are like, lives to eternity. So Swedenborg is trying to make the point that there's no annihilation. And no matter what, you're going to be around. And God is going to be continually trying to give the best life possible. And here's a funny little ripple effect that has on the way angels and spirits think. Since everyone lives forever after death, okay? No angel, no spirit even, has any thought whatever about death. And they've done all these studies like what's the greatest fear people have, the fear of dying. That's not on anybody's radar in the spiritual world, because death is not something that actually exists. They don't even know what dying is, which is, maybe he's just being hyperbolic there, or to say they just don't really consider it. But then again, when you get into the spiritual world, your natural memory is to an extent laid to rest so that you're not constantly just thinking back about high school, your whole eternal life. There's an element of you may well forget things that were, key parts of your initial structure, just like we forget so much of our childhood now that's not there. But it could be that after we've been spending some time in this deathless world, we really are like, wait, what's death? What is death? So when death is mentioned in the Word, because you get in the Bible, which Swedenborg says is like this huge cache of divine wisdom, it talks about dying all the time. You'd think there's this revelation from God. Okay, I'm just going to put what's true in there. There's never going to be death. Angels take it to mean either damnation. Okay, here we go. Here's two different definitions of death. Damnation, which is spiritual death, or else ongoing life and resurrection, which is the alternative. And I don't think he talks about spiritual death. Spiritual death more here, so I'll explain it to you a little bit. Thanks, said nobody. This is spiritual death. Right here. This is a picture. This mindset is spiritual death. And I would say that people who adopt and love and advocate for that mindset, they don't feel like they're dead. The things that we think of when we think of death, the consciousness, the ability to think, the ability to exist, they have that. And actually, there's a number of instances where people who are spiritually dead are trying to argue with Swedenborg and saying, look, the life you're choosing, the life that's this life, that's nothing. That's lame. That's dorky. What we have here is cool. So people who are spiritually dead, which is in that you love what has no actual life in it. That you're basically, that life is a sham. It's based on false principles. The things you like to do for enjoyment, you wouldn't want to have someone do to you, and so you have to make up some kind of justification in your head for why that's real. You've contracted reality. That the whole thing is based on a false premise that you are more important than everybody else, or that everybody else is not just as conscious and has the same rights that you have, whatever. That, and you deny the existence of reality, which is the existence of God, and even life after death, and all this sort of stuff. That contraction, that waste of potential, that's death. That's spiritual death. That's what it is, because it's hell. That's what damnation is a perpetual state of mind like that as you continue to chase these negative things. Where this other side, where we hook into God and bring everything into order and love what's good and true and kind of relegate to the very periphery the things that are evil and false, that's eternal life. And that life, that mode in the mind of loving those things, lasts forever. Either way, it's this little hookup that can get you going forever, that makes you not cease life. But is it really all about we cease consciousness or we don't? Swedenborg here seems to be arguing that it's about quality of life. That's what really makes eternal life eternal, is that you live a better and more loving and more expansive and happier life forever, rather than just messing around with this stuff that is such a downgrade for the human race, based on what we could have. So that's the message, and we can be chasing that eternal life all the time, because just like we've got our brain sending out into the body, God has an innermost place in us that from there sends into our spirit, which sends into the body. And God is working to bring us into this eternal life. You ever feel alive when there's something good happening? You ever feel like you have a sort of a new lease on life? That, but forever, is what God is trying to bring. And that's the news from heaven. How'd it work? Do you like it? Can you feel that, the pulse of the potential of the living forever? And how do you feel knowing that there's this God's little home in us? It's tucked in there somewhere. I couldn't find it, but it's there. And it's there because that's how we live. And as we continue to live, that's the thing that's pumping in and continually, not just there, but working to make it so that we accept what's good and true. That force is always there, even if you're feeling like, wow, this is just a chaotic mess on the outside. There's work being done there. So let me know, does that concept help you? Leave a comment, like and subscribe, and would you please support our show? We're a nonprofit. We need donations to make this programming possible. Go to otlemonthly.cosvox.com. That is our push to get monthly supporters so we can know on a consistent basis, we can keep doing this and you guys want to keep doing this. Thanks so much for all the support you've given. I hope that this week or the next couple of days you take this out and it changes something. If it does, comment and then we'll know, and then we'll be happy, and then we'll keep going forever. See ya.